It was supposed to be a quiet summer afternoon, just another day in the remote mountains where the Lambert family had raised sheep for generations. 13-year-old Ellie, the youngest daughter of a humble shepherd, waved goodbye to her father before disappearing into the high meadows with her dog and a small flock. But hours passed, then days. No sign of Ellie, no footprints, no torn fabric, no calls for help. The only thing they found was her walking stick wedged between two rocks. The entire town searched. Helicopters flew. Volunteers combed through every inch of the rugged terrain. But Ellie was simply gone. And for 22 long years, her father returned to those same hills every season. Still hoping for answers then, just as the past began to fade into painful memory, everything changed while upgrading an old mountain shelter. Her father unearthed something strange buried beneath the floorboards, something no one had expected. What he found reopened every wound and raised terrifying new questions about what really happened that day. Was Ellie ever alone in those mountains? And had someone been watching all along? In this chilling story of loss, endurance, and a discovery that turned a father's heartbreak into something much darker, we explore what lies beneath the surface of one family's tragedy and what they unknowingly built over it. Stay with us, because what happens next will shake everything you think. Want to go deeper into that haunting discovery? You'll want to hear what they uncovered during the upgrade. Ellie Lambert wasn't just any girl, she was the heart of her small mountain town. Quiet, curious, and always more comfortable among animals than people, she knew those hills like the back of her hand. Locals remembered her for her braided hair, her loyal sheepdog, Rusty, and how she'd sing to the herd on long walks up the slope. That's what made her disappearance even more baffling. It wasn't like her to wander too far or lose her way. And yet, after that summer afternoon, she was never seen again. Her father, Joe Lambert, never gave up. Even when everyone else moved on, teachers, friends, search crews, he clung to hope. Every year he patched up the old stone shelter she used to rest in, adding new boards, fixing leaks, and trying to preserve what little was left of her memory. That place became his ritual. But what he found during the most recent repairs was something he never prepared for. Buried just inches beneath the rotting floorboards was a rusted metal box. At first, he thought it was part of some old camping gear till he pried it open and saw what was inside. Tightly packed papers, photographs, and something else wrapped in cloth. His hands shook as he unfolded it, realizing it wasn't just forgotten junk, it was a message. Or maybe a warning. Who buried it there? Why in that exact spot? And how long had it been hidden under his daughter's favorite shelter? The truth was closer than he'd ever imagined, but far more disturbing than he ever feared. And just wait until you hear what was inside that cloth bundle. Inside the cloth bundle was something that stopped Joe's breath cold: a necklace. A delicate silver chain with a tiny charm. A mountain flower, flattened and worn. It was Ellie's. She'd worn it every day since her 10th birthday. But how could it end up in a box buried beneath the shelter? His mind raced. Did she come back? Did someone take it from her? And more. Disturbingly, had the shelter always been hiding something? He brought the box to the local sheriff, who had once led the original search. Now retired Sheriff Dale hadn't forgotten the case. But when he saw the box, his reaction wasn't curiosity, was fear. He urged Joe to leave it alone, to let the past rest. But Joe couldn't. He started asking around, talking to folks who had lived nearby back then. One neighbor remembered strange lights in the woods that summer. Another recalled hearing yelling late at night, but thought it was coyotes. Piece by piece, Joe began stitching together a timeline, and the details weren't adding up. Meanwhile, a woman named Clara, who had been Ellie's childhood friend, returned to the town after 2 decades. She reached out to Joe after hearing rumors of the discovery, but her behavior was odd, nervous, guarded, almost like she knew more than she was saying. When Joe showed her the box, her face went pale. She excused herself quickly and disappeared without saying a word. The deeper Joe dug, the more it felt like someone didn't want the truth uncovered. And one night, someone left a note on Joe's porch with no name, just 6 chilling words. The note left on Joe's porch was written in shaky pencil on torn paper. Asterisk, stop digging. She's not yours anymore. He stared at the words for a long time, his heart pounding. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the message was clear. Someone was watching him, and they didn't want him getting any closer to the truth. He reported it, of course, but the local authorities brushed it off. Probably a prank, they said. But Joe knew better. He began sleeping with his shotgun by the door, determined not to be intimidated. He returned to the mountain shelter with a flashlight and a crowbar, ripping up more floorboards. Beneath the soil, he found pieces of decayed fabric, part of a child's jacket, blue, with a torn sleeve. Ellie's, and under that, a small wooden crate nailed shut. He hesitated, hands trembling. Every instinct told him what was inside would change everything. As Joe worked to open it, he heard branches snapping nearby. At first, he thought it was just an animal. But then came footsteps, slow, deliberate. Not far off, he turned off his flashlight and crouched low, listening. A shadow moved between the trees. Whoever it was, they weren't running. They were watching. Waiting back in town, Clara hadn't been seen in days. Her phone went straight to voicemail, her apartment locked from the inside. Joe tried calling again, leaving one last message. Asterisk, you need to tell me the truth, before someone else does. Asterisk, because now, Joe wasn't just chasing a memory. He was being hunted by someone who knew exactly what happened that day. The next morning, Joe found tire tracks outside his gate, deep and fresh, leading right up to the barn and vanishing into the grass. But he hadn't heard a vehicle. No one had any reason to be there. Feeling like time was running out, he took the crate he found under the shelter and pried it open in his shed. What he saw inside wasn't what he expected. It wasn't bones, it was a tape recorder. Old, dusty, and wrapped in plastic. Next to it was a faded photo of Ellie, but not one Joe had ever seen before. She looked older, at least 16. She was standing in front of a wooden wall, eyes wide, as if someone had taken the picture without her knowing. His breath caught. Was she alive longer than anyone thought? Had someone kept her? He played the tape, and the static crackled to life. Then came breathing. A voice whispered her name. Then, clearer. Asterisk, don't let them find me. The recording cut off. Joe nearly dropped the device. The timestamp read 2005, 4 years after she vanished. That same evening, he got a call from a blocked number. A distorted voice said only this. Asterisk, you opened the wrong box. Then silence. As Joe sat alone in his kitchen, a cold realization hit him. This wasn't just a disappearance. It was something deeper. A cover-up, maybe even a network. And now, he wasn't just digging into Ellie's past. He was stepping into a secret someone spent decades trying to bury. Joe knew he couldn't run from it anymore. He took the photo, the tape, and the metal box straight to a local investigative journalist, someone outside the town, someone who hadn't been part of the original search. Within days, new eyes were on the case, and an independent forensic team was brought to the old mountain shelter. What they uncovered beneath a second layer of soil changed everything. A hidden basement crudely dug, reinforced with wood beams, sealed for years. Inside were old blankets, an oil lantern, scratch marks on the walls, and taped to the beam, a piece of paper with Ellie's name in her handwriting. It was now undeniable. She'd been kept there for years. The authorities had no choice but to reopen the case, and soon. The second twist emerged. Sheriff Dale, the same man who had led the original search and told Joe to drop it had once owned the land where the shelter stood. He'd sold it just 2 months after Ellie disappeared. Phone records and financial transactions linked him to an anonymous trust that had paid off a quiet medical facility 2 towns over. That's where Clara had gone. That's where Ellie had been. Ellie had survived. But she had lived her teenage years in secret, under heavy care, her identity buried in till she vanished again in 2005. The twist: the woman who left town years ago as Clara wasn't her friend. She was Ellie, and Joe had unknowingly spoken to his daughter without ever recognizing her face. For what he learned next, you won't believe where she'd been hiding all along. It all made sense now why Clara had avoided eye contact, why she vanished after seeing the box. The trauma had changed her beyond recognition. Ellie had been taken, hidden, and eventually placed in a private care facility under a false name. Sheriff Dale had orchestrated the cover-up, protecting someone close to him who was responsible for her abduction. But years later, Ellie escaped. And instead of returning home, she built a new identity. Clara was her shield, her way of staying free, even if it meant never fully healing. Joe sat on the porch, looking out at the mountains that had both raised and nearly destroyed him. He finally knew the truth. Ellie had lived, survived, and she had even come back, just not in the way he ever expected. She hadn't been ready to be his daughter again, but she'd watched from a distance. The discovery at the shelter had pushed